It's on. Right, before I start today, I'm just going to come out and say please, actually first, thank you before I start asking favours. Let me just say thank you to everyone who's supported me so far, for all the people who are sharing the episodes. Like, there's just been a huge influx of new listeners, so thank you, welcome to the podcast. And now I've been thinking a little bit more, and I know that I do a lot of this for the love of it, and I want to grow it some more. So if you know someone who would benefit from listening to it, or if you just want to help me out, just be an OG, and share some of the episodes that you like listening to, just put on your social media, get other people to listen to it, or go tell other people that you listen to this podcast. That would be extremely helpful to try to get the message out there a little bit more. There are a few things that are going on in terms of things I've been asked to do in terms of helping with mental health, and we all know my take on that term, and that I think it's a very secluded way of thinking about overall well-being, but I feel like this podcast is a really good gateway into actually talking about feelings in general, and just helping us become better humans overall. So that's just my little chat before we get into this episode. I'm going to be doing this pretty much every episode now, just to keep reminding you, because hopefully after the 100th episode that you listen to, you're like, oh, I might just help this weird-looking guy out. But anyway, let's get into the episode. This is a beautiful poem, just a nice short one, and this episode will be nice and short, just like the person recording it. Under the same sky, but it doesn't feel the same. All that's left of me is my name. These transitions we move through, with little recollection of who knew that all of this will add to the new you. Time passes by and never once says hi to you, and you never realize it's past until something reminds you. Your nephew is older, your hair is thinning out, and the thing that constantly runs us is something we know nothing about. A red blood cell will complete the cycle over and over again. An individual will socialize over and over with a friend. They say time heals and they say time mends, but while waiting for the right time to happen, it could all end. And that is a submission by the one YouTube algorithm. And that is rhythm spelt like when you have, ones and twos and threes and fours. And I think it's a beautiful name. It's also a beautiful poem. A lot of the poems recently that have come in have dealt with this thing called time. Something that when we think about it, we always think about it as this linear thing. We never really think, intergenerationally, which is something that I'm big in, like if we do something now, what are the cascading effects, from here, from this point, not being able to see it, but, how does that play out in the end? But also, right now is the manifestation of everything that has happened before us, and platforms that have been set for us to be able to be here. And YouTube algorithm, like what a name. I don't know if YouTube should be like that, because that's probably some copyright there, but rhythm, spelt like rhythm, just knowing that, the rhythms of our lives, the things that we go through day to day, what's popular, they're all rhythms, they're all cycles. They come in, they go out, but they reflect the needs, or they reflect the society, or whatever is cool at that time. Especially now with TikToks, with Instagrams, trends now come and go so quickly. I remember trends used to last like 10, at least a couple good years, like a decade worth of years, and people would call them eras. But I don't think we have eras anymore, because we just that's so fastly transitioning. And I don't know if anyone's had that conversation before. I don't know if you've had that conversation. I don't even know if anyone's listening to this. So here I am, rambling to myself for another awesome episode of the Sick As Podcast. So if you cast your mind back to the last solo episode that I did, I was talking about, kind of coming to grips with my own mortality, and the fact that everything comes to an end at some point. And I think that's why a lot of the poems that have been coming in have been dealing with this thing called time, and how we use it best. And if we had more time, what would we do? If we knew that we were running out of time, how would that change us? Do we change because of how we understand time? And within that time, how are we using it so that we optimize the amount of productivity or whatever it is that we do in that time? And I think the different ways of viewing time definitely going to change the way that you consume media, way that you use your money, you use your and the different activities you get involved with. But yeah, I think coming to grips with my own mortality and just realizing that everything is finite for my lifetime, for things that I'm going to be aware of. Like, you can think about reincarnations and coming alive again. You can think about, I'd like to think about what I will influence after this point. not like an influencer where people are going to use my 10% code, but, maybe 10% easier in life after, what I've been able to set up here. And I do think about that sometimes when I think about I want to leave it better than I was when I was here. Sometimes I feel like that's quite conceited of me to think that I can be the one who can do that, but also at the same time, like if I'm not aiming for a goal like that and I'm just, here to serve myself on this earth, then I don't think I'm living to my full potential. That's just me. I may be wrong, and I'm wrong often. That's my favorite thing to be, is wrong, but not neglectfully wrong, not being like I want to be wrong because it's fun. I just mean I like pushing boundaries of my limits of knowledge, because then people who are smarter than me, which is pretty much everyone, will tell me, hey, look, I think about it this way. And then I learn, and I love it. So next week when you're listening to my interview with Etiquette, we go through that same conversation, just the amount of people that you come into cahoots with who just like have a totally different perspective from you. But if you are open to listening to that perspective, man, you can grow. You can grow a lot because it challenges some of the thoughts that you've already had, but it also helps you explore like a different perspective. And then there's like a group of people who think that way. So you can then, get into their minds, and you can start, getting to know a little bit more about them. I think people are so quick to judge people who do not agree with their views on things, and they just say that they're haters, they say that they're stupid, they say that they're ignorant. I honestly think I've learnt the most from people who I don't agree with. But it's better when you can have a civilized discussion. There are some people who just don't agree with you and will do everything that they can in their power to not agree with you even more, and start pointing out personal things, or just really be like, well, I just don't think this is going to work. Like I think those people, they say they're open-minded, but they're the closest-minded people of the world. But anyway, I don't know where I was going on. What was I saying? My mortality. Oh yeah, so I came to I came to grips with my mortality, and I had a little think about the time where I fully thought about, dying, and just why it scared me so much. And I can see it. We were at my childhood home. I'd just eaten steak. It was the first time I'd had steak that I can remember in my life. It was quite salty. And I just think, like, I sat down because I got really sick. I was thinking about it. We were watching The Simpsons, and I lay on the couch, and I blamed it on the food being too salty, but my stomach started to hurt. And that was that uneasy feeling of like, man, I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm going to die. And then like all of these people are enjoying their lives right now, but they don't know that they're going to die. And I just thought I was the only one who had this revolutionary thought. But then I do remember, prior to that, I had got home from school at like 4 p.m., maybe 4:30. We had an after-school thing, and I fell asleep while it was daytime. Then I woke up in the night, and I think this is all part of it. And when you're just it's almost like you're jet-lagged. You're just so disoriented because you're like, is it next week? Is it tomorrow? Wait, hold on. How long was I asleep for? And everyone's just kind of going about their day as if nothing changed, right? But that feeling that you get, that like you're tingly, you're kind of not there. I honestly think my body, my soul must have left me and came back to me. I reckon that's that feeling that you have there is because your soul almost tried to run away from you while you were asleep, like it was just trying to go and die, and then it came back. And I think that's why I saw it and why I was so aware of it in that time. In Gran Turismo you used to play, or like you have ghost mode of something else, like it's a previous you who would do the course, but then you watch them, so you're learning from it, and you can see them. It's like a fainter version, if you're playing video games, a fainter version of you going forward and like jumping around and doing stuff, and then you like have to see where you fall down, so you're like, okay, that's where I fell, I need to do this. It's almost like that. But then we like converged, and then I came back awake, and I was like, what the heck? Where am I? Because I just experienced 2 different times at once. So that's that. But this has nothing to do with any of that stuff. This episode itself actually has to do on perspectives of growing up, and it's just something that I think it's a little bit more lighthearted, but it's just a reflection that I had recently. We were talking about privilege, and we were just talking about, every time I catch up with my siblings, we always talk about the struggles, and it's not the struggles as in like I had a hard time, but it's just because of our parents kind of showing us that you don't need to have everything, and just being able to be as resourceful as possible. I think that's the best way to put it, is like, I'm pretty okay to say that we grew up pretty poor. We grew up without a lot, but we still had everything. I think that's where we were at in terms of like there were some times you would never know that that our parents were struggling financially. Like they would say stuff to us in terms of why we couldn't do certain things, but they always tried to make things happen. And I think the generation of parents that we had, like I think they were just so good at being able to hide that stuff and just being able to go through and do what they needed to do. And it's almost like, is it The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, where his dad just made him feel like it was a game? I don't know if it's that. It's one of those ones when they were in the concentration camps where his dad knew that they were in the worst place possible, but what he did was he like made his child believe that they're in a game, and that that child's perspective is shaped by the view that their parents can give them. And I think that my parents did a really good job of that, as much as they were around, and in terms of like them being separated and stuff. We could see that the houses were small. We were all sharing bedrooms and all of that sort of stuff. But I think in terms of what they were able to give us in terms of opportunities to do stuff, for me to play rugby, for me to go to school, for me to be able to like set myself up to be able to come to university, like a lot of it was onus and having to put responsibility on myself to be able to get myself in a position to get scholarships and to be the type of person who could actually go forward and finish intellectually. But at the same time, like I just knew because there was no backbone, and like those are the conversations that we had, is we're not financially stable. We can't do all of these different things, but it's not like that's going to stop us. It's just that if you're going to do this, you're going to need to give it everything because there is no backstop for you. And I think, honestly, that sort of mentality for me helped me so much. And I know a lot of you have heard this and have heard a few stories where I'm just like, if someone tells me no, or if someone tells me like there is no way you can do this, or it's going to be almost impossible for you to be able to do something like this, I thrive. That's where I really start to put my foot down and apply myself even more, because I love that feeling of people thinking you're an underdog. Like there's just something about it that just amps me up so much. So what I wanted to do today is just, I've been having a few conversations with different people, and we're just talking about anxiety and being able to get through it. And there are definitely, like, when people, I always think back to my family, and I think about the types of things that people would do if they can get through stress, depression, all that sort of stuff. And like you can be mindful, you can do mindfulness, you can do meditation, you can do that breathing and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes when you're just poor, and you don't have the money, like that's the last thing. Like it's just, you're so stressed because you literally are thinking, man, there is a possibility that I cannot pay this bill. There is a possibility that, we may have difficulties eating this week. Doing mindfulness and all that sort of stuff might help you in terms of like where you put your money, where you put your attention to make sure that the money is put to the best place and that you use it and that you're not reactive when it comes to different things when you get different money. But I just feel like the main thing is that you just want to survive. Like if you're in it, it's hard. It's hard for you to get out of it. I understand that. But sometimes, you even have to think about, what's this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Sometimes people don't even have the basic necessities. Some people don't even have like heating in their homes. They can't even feed themselves. They can't, like, it's really hard to get food. And it's been, something that we've experienced growing up. And the last thing people are going to want to do is breathe, is do meditation, is do all of that sort of stuff. Because like after this, I'm still poor, And I think what I've neglected in the past is, now that I've got a career, I'm getting money now, I can start to do all of this sort of stuff. Like I'm super privileged. I've been able to put myself in a position to be able to do all that stuff for myself. But then I think about, my family and everyone that I grew up with, and this is a very distant dream from a lot of them. Like I talk about reflection, and it's hard to reflect when your immediate environment is on fire. And you just need to put out the fires and pretty much live a life like that, where you have to be reactive, because if you don't, there's life or death situations. There's literally not knowing what's going to happen the next week, because financially you do not have the resources to be able to do it. So that's just been something that's kind of crossed my mind a little bit more. And I have been, thinking about it a lot more, but also it's because of conversations with my siblings where we talk about the struggles, where me and my brother, I'm just going to put it out there. Me and my brother shared a room until I left uni, and I've never had my own room until I got to uni. just because we had a small house and we had a lot of, there were like 8 of us in a 3-bedroom house for a very long time, for a lot of my high school years. And just thinking about, if you think about the anxiety and all that and what you can do to deal with it, most times you're like, stuff like this will pass. Like recently I've just been like, I will get to Sunday, that stressful game is going to be done. It's only 80 minutes on the field. And once this is done, or like, I've got this piece of work that's going to be done, but I know that by this time it's going to be done. It's going to pass. I've had some pretty hardcore weeks and I'm just like, it's going to pass. It's going to go. And if I'm worrying about it now, that means it must not be an issue. Like if I'm worrying about it, that means it's not a big issue. If I can think about it, if I can step my way through it, that means I have time to deal with it, which is a good thing. It means that I'm mindful and I'm aware of it. But when, for example, the reasons why all of these feelings come up is because, if a tiger was attacking you, you had to react and you had to be quick to react. But if you're able to kind of think about it a bit more and go through those emotions, then it's probably not too much of an issue and it's something that's going to pass. And like I said before, I think that's just, there's different avenues to that. There's different kind of levels of that. There's the poor people who are probably always worried. And I think about this more when I think about, why my parents would be just angry sometimes, or it would affect them. It would really affect them. And sometimes, they're just humans. And I think about how I am with different people. And I think about how I am when I'm dealing with people, when I'm, a little bit hungry or a little bit tired or something hasn't quite gone my way. And then my next interaction with someone else could be down, or could be, like they're probably thinking, what the heck, did I do something to upset them? But it's just because I carried that resentment from the previous exchange, and I've carried it into my next exchange. Now you just think that you're looking after, the livelihood of children, of people you care about, you love, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to feed them, or you're not sure how we're going to be able to stay in this place because financially things aren't looking too safe. The ability of our parents to be able to just put on a smile and just give us the best that they could with what they had still baffles me. And I do get sad about this quite a bit, because I remember I went through this rebellious stage where I was just thinking, why couldn't they just do this? Why couldn't they just do that? But then I put myself in their shoes. Like, I'm older than my parents were when they had me, and I still cannot deal with just dealing with myself. And they were looking after the 3 of us at the time. So, that sort of thing, where I understand now why they were fucking shit in the bed, was because, like, financially, it's extremely stressful. And, if they had had financial stability, like, would they have stayed together as people? Like, would they have been able to emotionally be a bit more, together? Or were, I start to question a lot of things, like, in terms of, would they have been together in terms of their relationship? Would we have grown up and actually felt more love, even though, if we knew it then, that was the most love that they could give us, because that was just what they could do, and they were trying to hide us from the hurt that, they were going through. So that's just, it's just another reflection. But as part of that, some of the funny things, when you do get out of that self-pity stage, that, like, my parents only did this for me, like, they didn't care. It's funny because when you start to think about it, the types of things that they did to be able to save money, they are savvy. They are some different people. Like, there's things about them where you're just like, man, that is the resourcefulness that we all miss now, because everything's so quick. And I put out a little message on my Instagram, the Sick As Podcast, if you want to go check that out and follow it. And I was just saying, like, what are some things that remind you of the struggle puffs, that will remind you of, these were the ways that we saved money. And I think a lot of people do this reflection where they talk, to their siblings, or they just think like, oh man, now that you get a little bit of money, things change. And you're just like, wow, well, I do this now, or I do this now, and we used to be like that. But before I do that, I just, have a few more just reflections, I think. And I know my dad listens to this, and I just, want him to hear. And I should probably talk to him about it at some point. But, just when I was growing up, I just think there are a lot of things that I was truly grateful for, that I'm truly grateful for now. Like, at the time, I was like, man, you're inconveniencing my life so hard. And I just remember, being at high school and being able to get a ride. We had this van, and that, like, I was too busy trying to be cool that sometimes I was, like, embarrassed to be picked up by my dad. And I was like, this is a free-ass ride. And And I just used to, yeah, I don't know, that used to embarrass me. And I still remember one of my, I don't know, I think it's just I didn't like that we were poor. Like, I was almost embarrassed that we didn't have too much money, and I used to, say stuff, and I used to make up stories about what we would do in the holidays, and just a bunch of that stuff. But what I do realize is that in that time of not having too much money, we were very resourceful, and we used to, as friends, get together, and we should make so much fun with barely anything. But that barely anything was enough, was always enough, and we were grateful for everything that we did have. And you were gutted when your bike tire was punctured, because it might be a little bit until you're able to fix it, and that was like your mode of transport. And I remember actually I think this is testament to kind of like where my dad would do anything just to make sure that I could get anywhere. So he took me to all my rugby practices and my rugby games, and when I was going through academy and everything, he made sure that I could get there, and he supported that dream. But when I started skateboarding, I remember my first competition that I ever did, and it was we weren't sure. So firstly, like, to be able to get over there, he wasn't sure if I could like get any money to be able to get lunch and all that. So all my friends were going to be able to get lunch and get the food and do all that stuff to be able to support themselves. But also, we didn't know if we had enough money to get petrol to actually be able to take me over. But somehow, we made it work. We got there super early just to make sure that I could set up properly. And like that, it was a long thing of having to talk through like how we're going to do this, because I need to get to this comp, I need to skate. And for him to be able to, just kind of pull through and make sure that it did happen for me, even though, he'd sat me down, he had a little chat, and like there's a possibility that we might not be able to go. It's that sort of thing. It's that sort of thing all the time, because in that moment, he probably had to sacrifice or just think about all the small little things that he couldn't do or won't be able to do because he needs to take his son to go compete in skateboarding. Something that I wanted to do as a profession. So yeah, as a 13-year-old at the time, I just never really took into consideration just how small it seemed for me, but how large it probably it was in the end, just in terms of priorities for him. But yeah, so that was my first skate comp. University as well, for me to be able to get here, it was all scholarships, baby. I wouldn't have been able to come here without scholarships. My scholarship that I got in my first year, like, it paid for my hall, but it didn't. So this is even just like differences. So like when you're filling out stuff and you start to get like student allowance and all that, you have to figure out how much your parents make. And I'm just like, what the heck? I'm not saying, oh man, you're poor, but when you see the combined income, and it like, technically it wasn't even combined income because my mum lives in a different country and she doesn't really feed into any of that. And also, even though they have a combined income, like, we don't get allowance from our parents, and they don't pay for anything once we left home. I don't know if I should be saying this. Is this too confident? Actually, no. This is where I'm at. This is who I am. And this is how it's always been. But yeah, there was this $700 bond that needed to be paid. Right, so we all thought, you've got the scholarship, it's all good, it's all sorted. But we got this quick, like, okay, cool, it's all cool, but you need to pay this bond by next week. And I pretty much had $700 that was going to be like my money for the year. That's like me looking after myself as like additional money, because I also have the scholarship money. So all of my money had to go. So basically, for O week, I didn't have any money. I was in negatives for a very long time. I didn't really get out of negatives until not long ago. So just that sort of thing, like people being able to just, okay, we'll jump into the savings. Savings? What the heck is that thing? And I think financial literacy and all that sort of stuff, like, I'm aware of it now, and I'm finally putting myself into a position where I can actually start, doing the savings and all of that sort of stuff. But if anything had gone wrong, and this is an example, when I wanted to do research one summer. The summer research, like, they don't tell you whether you get it until the end of November. Most people will finish uni and start getting jobs. I needed a job, because if I don't get a job, I can't pay rent. I can't ask my parents for money, because like, they will just tell me there's no way we can help you with any of this. And if I can't pay rent, then that's it. Like, there were times where I'm just like, well, looks like I'm not coming back to Dunedin. Looks like I'm not going to be able to study. and then, you find out that you get the research gig and then everything's all good. But like that stress, that's like, oh, what am I going to do? Oh my gosh, do I just work? Because then if I start work, they're not going to want to employ me because now I have to do my research. So all of those sorts of things, like I don't have that financial backbone, or I didn't have it when I was growing up. And that's stressful because all they want is for me to succeed. But, there were a lot of loopholes. There were a lot of damn places where I'm just like, sheesh, this is, well, okay, well, we're going to have to pack it up for a year until I can get this stuff back on the road and go get a job. And I just know there's a lot of people who don't have to deal with that sort of thing. So yeah, in terms of being mindful in that time, like I used to be stressed as fuck, trying to be happy, just trying to get through the day because I knew that, well, if I don't, man, I can't do this anymore. So yeah, that's just a little bit of where I'm at. And another thing was we were very embarrassed about going to op shops. So a lot of our clothing, we'd go to the op shops, we'd go to, what's it called? There's this one in Puriroa, and we used to go there all the time, and I used to get all the gears from there. It was fucking lit. I loved it. I loved getting it, but then I remember a lot of the chat was like, oh yeah, they shop at the op shop, blah, 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 blah. And it used to get quite embarrassing for me when I found out that people would say that sort of thing. So I'd lie about where I got my clothes from, obviously, because, you want to be cool at school. And now, it's thrifty as fuck. Like, you see rich people going to the op shops, buying it, and then reselling it, business as. But, like, it's almost cool now to show people how much money you save by going to the op shop. And that was something that we were extremely embarrassed about when we were kids and having to wear op shop clothing. So, I wouldn't mind if my parents would give us clothes and we didn't know that it was from the op shop, but, like, I thought they were cool clothes. I thought they were really cool. I wore them all the time. But anyway, I think at this moment, I'm still learning the etiquette of actually having money. When you get more money, you have to start building up the foundational stuff. Stuff that usually, parents would do for you and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not hating on my parents. I'm just, like the getting insurance, insuring everything, making sure that all that stuff is fine, all the stuff that people don't see, like you'll buy all the gears, you have the new phone, you have all of that stuff that you can see, and visually it looks like, you are a well-off person, but what they don't tell you about is like the different types of insurance that you have to get, so you can have your equipment, but like, is it insured? Do you have the financial backing to make sure that it's safe? Long-term stuff, investments, savings, all that sort of stuff that people can't see because it's not flashy clothes, it's not Gucci, it's not the slides, it's just, it's stuff that's kind of in the air and that people have stability for. So learning about how to do all that stuff, this is all stuff that I would never have imagined when I was growing up. This is all stuff that I only learned, like state insurance was only because I knew it was a state building. AIG, an investment group, is only because of the All Blacks. Like I never would have thought that myself would be a person who could start to partake in this sort of stuff because we didn't have like a backbone. We didn't have that stuff to be able to support us. So that's just a real roundabout way of saying, after huge perspectives and chats with all these different people, when we were talking about, what were the struggles when you were growing up, it's just funny now because like a lot of people went through similar stuff. But the main message that came through was that they were glad that they had that because now they can see like, this is what my parents did for me to be able to be where I am. And I've just got a few funny ones that I want to read. I put them on my stories, but I'm going to read them out here just in case you don't follow me on Instagram. But some people were saying that they downloaded videos. This is stuff that they could do to be able to save a bit of coin, or because they didn't have something at home, so they had to go elsewhere to get it. Put more clothes on if you are cold. Now, that's a classic. We used to do that at home. We definitely used to do that at our flats as well. You'd just come in and you'd see us in like hoodies, sleeping bags, or just sitting in the lounge watching TV. And people were like, why don't you put the heaters on? It's like, oh, our electricity bill will go up a little bit and we can't really afford that. People were like, oh, but you can pay for pleasure, can't you? And I'm like, ew, you can pay for pleasure if you've got the money to pay. So that's funny. Wheat Bix with warm water for brekkie. This came through multiple times. And the funny thing is, I honestly did not realize that's not normal. I just thought you're not meant to have milk. Like, it's just, you can put hot water on it, that's it, maybe a bit of sugar, chuck that on, you're good to go. I thought that's how you eat Wheat Bix until I saw the ads where people were putting milk on it, and I was like, damn, that's some expensive taste, baby. Lived on noodles from year 7 to 10, and I also responded to this one saying that there was a urban myth going around when I was in year 13, maybe year 12, because my friend Harrison used to eat a lot of meagering. I think his dad told him that there was like some sort of student who ate meagering straight for like a few years, and then he went blind. We used to have sleep for dinner, staple dish. And it is a staple dish. It's one of those things where like, oh, what are we going to eat? Maybe a wind burger, just a little bit of nothing, maybe a side dish of nothing. Yeah, classic. Can't beat using the oven to heat the house. We did this quite a bit. We would close all the doors at one of my flats, my first flat, and we'd like cook, and we'd cook, and then we'd get all the heat into the thing, and we'd like chill in there because it was so cold, and then we'd open the doors and we'd let the thing all flush through. It was basically our own little, what's it, HRV, whatever that thing is, the ventilation system. So you just got shepherd's pie smell going all through the house, and you're like, well, I don't care if I smell a little bit like an onion. This is warmth. This is warmth, baby. Downloaded videos at school so I could watch them at home. 100% attendance, 0% Wi-Fi. That is hilarious. Yeah, I was the same. I used to go to school and pretty much just like at lunchtime would watch YouTube videos, just because I wasn't really able to watch them at home. I was never able to download the videos though. That's some news. Oh, I didn't have a smartphone. That's probably why. Look at these rich ass people. Clip converter for songs only on YouTube that you wanted to put on CDs back in the day. Burning CDs. That is right. If you had some pretty good internet, you'd like write down a list. So my mum used to always want this because she lived in Raro, and she used to always want new songs. So she used to write down songs. And a memory to know the song and the artist is next level. But she knew exactly what she wanted. We made her quite a few CDs that we would take over. And we would download them all and we would burn them onto a CD. You remember burning CDs? How good. And I had this CD case thing, and I would have like all my CDs in there and be able to listen to it. Cool. What else is there? Weekbooks. Yeah. I had to choose what days I could have funds based on my funds. Absolutely. Reuse the same tea bag again to make a second cup. And some people would write back and say, yeah, I do this about 5 times until it basically just tastes like water. We don't shake the gas nozzle. We turn the whole damn hose upside down. Exactly. Talk about privilege when people just like get it and then spill a little bit on the way out. You got to get every last drop. We have food at home. Classic saying. A very, very classic saying. And that, like, honestly, that saves so much money. If you can do your shopping and have like all the food that you definitely have, and save like by not spending so much on takeaways, it does save money. So thank your parents for teaching you that trick. Although if they restrict you too much, you probably bought everything for a little while until you realize, man, I don't have enough money. I would tailgate Dad in and out of the barriered car parks. No way we were paying for 2 tickets. That is genius, because the thing's not going to come down unless they have cameras on you or something like that. That's awesome. I think that's actually a scene in Fast and Furious 37, the one that comes out where it's all about family, so families get to ride free. No, that's thank you. Thank you for writing that in. 101 different ways to use flour and water, and 102 different ways to do potatoes. Flour and water. You've got glue, you've got bread, you've got everything. You've got pasta. If you add a little bit extra to it as well. And potatoes are so versatile. No one ever talks about the versatility of potatoes. Everyone just talks about how they're making people fat because they're carbohydrates, which is not true. Okay, you can eat as many potatoes as you want. I'm living proof. I eat potatoes every day, basically, but they're fried. Chips. Cool. Leftover water from the kettle goes into the thermos, so it stays hot and can be used again. Now, this was probably the only one that I had never thought about. This is next level. This is like, whoa. Now we're thinking, like, this is a next, like, this is beyond where I would usually be. I would just think, like, oh, yeah, just turn the kettle on again. It's not that much of a difference. But we always had such cheap kettles that by the time it finished boiling, if you left it for more than a couple of minutes, it went kind of like semi-lukewarm again. So that's a really good point. Saying my kids are under 2 to get a free seat, and if they question or get defensive, say it's just because they're island Māori, when really he's almost 3. So you're lying. That's what you're doing. You're lying, and you're getting mad at people and you're starting to use the race card. So even though we did this all the time, you try to go to the movies as a child, and you're like, I'm like 26, and then like you're 11. I know what the sentiment of it is. I know what you're trying to say. Recording a song off the radio on your phone so you can make it your ringtone. Heck yeah! And you used to put it on tape as well. So I used to make, how I talked about making CDs. I remember If It's Cool by Nesian Mystic. They kept saying all week, we're gonna release the new video from Nesian Mystic, If It's Cool. And I got my tape, on Juice TV. I got my tape. I put it in and I recorded it onto it. But I recorded over something really important because I'm a fucking idiot. But anyway, I've got If It's Cool by Nesian Mystic, and it was a pretty okay video clip. Right. Rice and butter for tomato or tomato sauce for dinner. So just, flavoring up that rice. I remember when we first moved into our flat, we had a rice cooker, and I think we had rice and pepper for one of our first dinners. Lit! Share the same bath, cleanest first, and work through to the dirtiest. That is great! So you're just going through and just making sure that no one pee-pee in the bath, and make sure that no one does anything that could compromise the bath water. Share a tin of spaghetti and baked beans for all the siblings, and there are 4 of them. That is, sharing is caring. That's what's going to get you into doing what you need to do and being able to go all the way through. Man, there are a lot here. I'm going to go through the last couple. Paper towels for toilet paper, because toilet paper was expensive. We actually used to do that quite regularly, but it would be when we'd run out of toilet paper. There were times we used newspaper. I'm not going to lie. There were times where it would hurt the bum. And sometimes tissues. When you're just about to run out of toilet paper and you have to take tissues just in case. But yeah, anyway. Inorganics collection was a shopping spree for my grandfather. He built most of our family home based on wood and metal sheets he could find in organics. That's something I think we're missing right now. Like, unless, because we're going into different places. We're going into, tertiary education. We're going into all of that sort of stuff. But I don't think, I think we're losing those skills of being able to be crafty. And like, we always think about, that old dude who's always looking for old materials so that he can make stuff. And I think now we've got this weird perception that those people are just like, I think it's kind of cooler to be able to go buy it new than it is to be able to be thrifty with it. So it's like this weird thing where, like, for fashion, it's okay to be thrifty, but for, being able to put something together, it's not so cool. I don't know. It's a weird place, but that's so cool. I think that's definitely a skill that I would like a little bit. So, like, my brother, for example, he's just like one of those tradey motherfuckers. He's awesome. He does all that sort of stuff. He's been doing it since we left school, and people were really worried. They're like, oh, your brother's gone off and done this at university, blah, 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 blah. But, like, fucking give me a hammer and I'd be shite, right? He can do all of that sort of stuff. He's actually probably more equipped for life than I am. And that's something that I'm super proud of him for. So, yeah. No, I think that's cool. Hand-me-down college clothes, classic. You must be a Weasley. Nah, but that's for sure. Buying the sizes way too big and you just like got a huge bag. Your shorts are pretty much 3/4, and your jumper is just swigging. You makes your hands swim in it, and then like you'll grow into it. You'll have a growth spurt, but you don't grow, and you just got these huge ass shorts, and they look like dickies on you for no reason. Anyway. Cool. So I think we're going to leave it there. There are so many here that I'm not going to be able to get through, but it was fun. It was really, really fun to be able to read those all. And if you have any more, send them through. Have a little chat. Hope this starts a discussion. You start to think about, all the things that your parents did to make sure that you could live your best life by not having to pay too much on the smaller things. So that's been another episode of the Sick As Podcast. Remember to share this shit around, please. I think we're in a good spot, and I think we're in a place where we can really start to push the numbers on this podcast. So yeah, thank your parents, thank yourselves for getting yourself through, love yourselves, and we will see you next week with an episode with Te Ariki Mana. So yeah, love you, have a good week.